Well, good morning, everyone. Trevor the Aviator here, and I am currently in Atlanta, Georgia. And today is a very special day, as today, for the first time, I am actually going to be touring you guys the Delta Flight Museum here in Atlanta. So I am currently on my way into the place, and I am not too far from the entrance. But pretty shortly, I am going to be getting my ticket, and I will see you guys when I get inside of the museum. Alrighty, so now I just got checked into the museum. Now let's see what this place has to offer. With seeing the front entrance to the Delta Flight Museum of a giant airplane hangar, I really was starting to get very excited with my visit here. And sure enough, after I entered into the museum, the first thing that I was greeted with was seeing a Delta DC-3 on display. And this was such a cool thing to see here in the museum, and it really felt like that I went back in time. And after seeing the DC-3, there were also a couple of other airplanes around in the exhibit, as well as a area that featured the history and such of Delta Airlines when it came to the uniforms in that flight attendants wore, to even some fun facts and details about some of their former aircraft, and also as well the very beginning stages of what it was like when it came to the early days of Delta Airlines. And with seeing all this, it was a very impressive area, and this airline has a lot of history when it comes to aviation. Delta Airlines was originally founded in 1925 as Huff Dahlen Dusters, based out of Macon, Georgia, as a crop dusting company, and they were that way for a few years before they started commencing operations as an actual airline in 1929. So, with realizing that this airline started off as a crop dusting company, it's absolutely crazy to think about how a crop dusting company turned into one of the biggest airlines in the world today. I then started heading my way down to the Fly Delta Jets tunnel, which is pretty cool to witness, but then that ended up leading me into going by a giant room which features quite a number of various models on display, and it features so many airlines in this area, and it's a place where I could spend hours just looking at all the different airplanes that are in this area. But eventually, after looking around that, it led me to the main part of the museum, and where the big hangar is at when you enter, which is where the Boeing 767 here lies, right at the dead center of the main part of the Delta Flight Museum. This livery that you see of this Spirit of Delta plane was actually used by the airline from the 1980s up until the early 2000s. So it is, in today's standards, pretty vintage, is best to describe it as. But I also ended up going inside of the airplane and ended up being able to see the flight deck. And that was pretty cool to see for a 767. But I also, as well, ended up touring quite a bit of the airplane as well. And it ended up featuring quite some stuff inside. So the first thing is that it features what the seats looked like back during this aircraft being in operation, and it felt pretty old in there, but it kind of felt like a bit like going back in time with this. And also near the back of the airplane, it actually features an exhibit in which, for example, Delta Airlines actually was one of the airlines where sports teams would end up flying on charter planes to their destination for the games, and is also the case today as well. And also, as well, some other various things from even before the merger happened, back when Northwest Airlines was also in operation as well. So with that, it was pretty cool to see that. There wasn't too much with Northwest, but it was still cool to see a little bit of history in the museum about that, which I found was pretty fascinating. But also outside of the Boeing 767, in this hangar, there is also a fuselage display of probably one of the greatest aircrafts of all time to be made, the Lockheed L-1011 TriStar. I really wish I could see this plane before it was gone, unfortunately. But also, there was a tail section of a DC-9 in here, and also, as well, there was a flight simulator of the Boeing 737, and this is actually available for a 1 hour flight experience, and it used to be where Delta Airlines pilots ended up doing training at. So with that, there's quite a bit to see in this hangar as well, with all of that happening. And after seeing everything inside, I will say it was quite cool being able to be inside of this hangar and seeing what this place had to offer. And as I ended up exiting the hangar, I was also greeted by a DC-7 that is located literally right outside of the front entrance, which was really cool to see as I started heading my way over towards the 747. Well, so I just got out from the inside portion of this museum. I will say it's not as big as like other places I have been to, but it actually was pretty cool to see everything inside in that. And I will say it definitely was worth seeing everything that it had to offer in there. So now I actually do have a wristband, and I am actually going to be heading my way towards the 747, and I am looking really forward to seeing what the 747 has in store for me to see very shortly. And sure enough, once I ended up seeing the 747, I was just in complete excitement when I ended up seeing this. I started to head my way up to the main entrance portion of the 747, and as I ended up getting closer to it, it just felt a whole lot bigger with being right then and there. Once I ended up getting in, I ended up seeing what the inside looked like, and it actually is a pretty good size with being inside, especially seeing the area where when you see it from a perspective where the seats are not in. However, though, I checked out the area first where the seats and such are in which where the first class section is at. And I will say for a 747's time, this actually looked pretty good when these aircraft were in operation. And also the seats of what looked to be like economy and that were also not bad either for its time. Behind that area actually lies a exhibit which actually features some special things about the Boeing 747, which was definitely worth seeing a look at while being inside of the aircraft here. After I saw the inside of the airplane, I ended up heading outside onto a deck where it actually would overlook the area and such, and it was pretty cool being on what would be a wing of a 747 if it was flying. And that was definitely quite different. And overlooking that is actually a Boeing 757 that you will see off in the distance when you end up seeing that from the view from the outside of it. And like the DC-7 that you see at the entrance of the place is also another vintage livery that you have of the Delta 757, which I really, really like a lot. So after that, I headed my way back inside to the upper deck, and I'll actually show you guys what it is like to actually be on one of these first class seats on the second floor of the 747. Well, so I actually am here in the first class area, and like, just check out what it would feel like with me being here in conceit. So you can kind of see my legs would be literally very, very stretched out. And then as you can see there is the window. Well, actually no, there is actually the window, which actually provides a pretty good view on here, but you could do it in just a very relaxing style. Man, this would be quite the aircraft to fly on. I really wished Delta and United would have continued the 747s, because these are such magnificent aircraft that have flown over the years. Really wish I could have gotten a flight on one of these before they retired, but hopefully I can get a flight on 747 one of these days soon, so we can see what happens on that. And of course, after I was relaxing for a little bit, I had to go inside the flight deck and see what it was like for a 747. Now this is an old school machine, and it just looks amazing seeing this in person. Wow. And after I ended up seeing the flight deck, I began to head my way towards the back of the 747 where the exit was located at. And I will say, with being able to see this aircraft here in Atlanta, it was quite the experience to be able to see what it had to offer. And also as well, there's not just the 747, and there's actually a couple of other things around too, such as this DC-9 that you see on display that is also around the area, as well as a couple of other things. But I will say, being here at the Delta Flight Museum, it was overall quite the experience that this place had to offer, and the 747 exhibit is a must if you guys happen to come here. Well guys, so that does it from here at the Delta Flight Museum in Atlanta, Georgia. And I will say it was quite a bit that I ended up seeing during my time here, and I would highly recommend you guys looking at coming to this place. It is very convenient from the airport, as it is right next to the place. So this would even be a good place to check out if you guys have a long layover down here. But most importantly, I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. And if you are interested in watching some more aviation videos, then go ahead and like, comment, and also to subscribe. And let me know what you think of the channel as well. Until then, this is Trevor the Aviator from the Delta Flight Museum in Atlanta, Georgia, where I will see you guys again at the airport very shortly. Bye everybody.